If there's one brutal truth that no one prepares you for, it's this. The woman who once held your hand with warmth can one day look at you with nothing behind her eyes, and it breaks you. Quietly, repeatedly. Most men are taught to fix, to explain, to hold on harder when she pulls away. But what if the answer isn't to hold on? What if your real power is in what you don't do? You're about to unlock the most difficult form of strength, the kind that doesn't yell, doesn't beg, doesn't chase, but simply refuses to collapse. The kind that stands in silence while your world shakes and chooses to watch instead of react. Picture this. She says something sharp, dismissive, maybe even cruel. It lands, your chest tightens. The instinct is to speak, defend, and prove your worth. But instead, you breathe, you say nothing. You look her in the eye and you feel the pain without flinching. That is presence. That is power. That is what she won't forget. Because she expects you to lose control. She's seen it before. But when you don't, when you stay rooted while she tries to pull you under, you become the mirror. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to handle the woman who hurt you, not with revenge, but with inner command. Not to change her, but to reclaim you. You don't lose your power when she wounds you. You lose it when you hand it to him. You're trying to be understood. Number 1, hold the pain, don't react to it. She says it like a throwaway line. You're too sensitive, or worse, I didn't mean it like that. But the weight is real. The impact lands. And in that millisecond, you have 2 choices. React and bleed, or hold and lead. Your body tightens, your chest contracts. You want to speak, say something sharp, clever, defensive. But deep down, you know that moment isn't about her words. It's about your reaction. Because when a woman tests your center, she's not listening to your explanation. She's watching your frame. Here's what most men don't understand. Not every cruel word is meant to wound, but every reaction teaches her how much power she holds. And when you give her emotional fire in return for hers, you give her confirmation. He's not as grounded as he looks. She says she's just being honest, but the timing is off. You're not sure if it's honesty or control dressed as vulnerability. When you hold the pain and stay still, it rattles her. Because women expect you to flinch, to collapse, to spill your feelings and give her a script to control. But when you don't, when you just breathe, stay present, and look her in the eye, you become something she doesn't know how to dominate. This works because most people confuse emotional presence with emotional performance. They think that to be real is to react. But masculinity, real, embodied masculinity, absorbs first, responds later. And often it doesn't need to respond at all. You're not here to win the moment. You're here to master yourself. This is the psychological dynamic. When you don't react to the hit, you reflect it. Your non-response becomes a mirror. And that mirror forces her to face the impact of her behavior. Something she likely hasn't had to do with other men. Because those men cracked. They yelled. They chased. They begged to be seen. But you remain. You don't retaliate. You don't storm off. You stay. Not to please her, but to anchor yourself. And she feels that shift. It's not silence rooted in withdrawal. It's silence rooted in power. You've stepped out of the emotional tug of war and planted your flag in the ground. Let her sit in that. Let her realize the echo of her own words. Let her feel the contrast between your steadiness and her chaos. This doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you don't reward it with energy. You'll speak, but on your time. Not in the heat, not in the storm, but when you've cooled, when you've chosen your words like a man who builds, not a boy who reacts. And when you do speak, it will land. Because it comes from clarity, not chaos. From presence, not panic. You are not here to teach her with lectures. You teach her with energy. And your energy says, I felt that, I held it, but I don't belong to it. That's what makes her pause. That's what makes her reevaluate. And most of all, that's what makes you proud to look in the mirror. Because power isn't loud, it's still, and it doesn't ask permission. Number 2, stop explaining yourself to be understood. She misunderstands your silence, your distance, your discipline, and instantly fills the blanks with assumptions. She accuses you of shutting down, of being cold, of not caring. And your first instinct? You want to clarify, to explain, to tell your side. But you don't, because you finally learned the cost. Every time you try to explain your boundaries to someone who doesn't respect them, you reinforce their power to define your identity. This is the trap. She pushes, prods, and interprets your masculinity through her emotional lens, and you feel obligated to convince her otherwise. But the more you explain, the more she doubts. Because what you're signaling isn't strength, it's permission to reinterpret you. She says you're distant, but really you're focused. She calls you cold, but inside you're on fire. You know the truth, but now she's rewriting the script. This psychological loop is dangerous because the more you try to be understood, the more you abandon your frame. You adapt your tone, reshape your words, cushion your truth just to be received. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't explain strength to be accepted. You embody it to be felt. When a woman feels your emotional center slipping into please understand me mode, something shifts. You stop being the mountain. You become a mirror, and she no longer feels your edge, just your effort. She doesn't miss the version of you who made her feel safe in your clarity. She sees the version trying to negotiate for emotional safety. And in that moment, she stops listening, not because she's cruel, but because she senses the switch from power to persuasion. What does power look like here? It's not silence with resentment. It's stillness with conviction. It's you choosing not to over-communicate your intention, not because you don't care, but because your energy already said it louder than words. From her perspective, this hits deeper than words ever could, because now you've forced her to sit with her projection. You're not fixing it. You're not feeding it. You're reflecting it by refusing to be dragged into emotional chaos disguised as a conversation. The less you explain, the more she feels, the more she questions, the more she chases meaning in your pauses instead of comfort in your validation. This dynamic works because women intuitively test strength, not in confrontation, but in confusion. And when you respond with "let me explain," you confirm you're not standing in truth, you're negotiating it. You are not a character in her emotional novel. You are not here to edit your story so she can sleep better at night. You are not here to shrink your edge to fit her approval. You're here to hold your frame even when misunderstood, especially when misunderstood. And in doing so, you give her something she didn't expect: the weight of emotional responsibility. Now she has to ask herself, was she right? Was she projecting? Did she cross a line? But none of that happens if you interrupt the space with justification. None of that unfolds if you keep trying to be liked more than you're willing to be respected. The next time she throws an emotional label at you, don't defend, just observe. Let it pass through you. And when the silence stretches and she asks, "So that's it? You're not going to say anything?" You look her in the eye and calmly say, "There's nothing to explain. You either feel it or you don't." And in that moment, she does. Number 3, detach without bitterness, withdraw with weight. She doesn't slam the door. She just stops opening it the same way. The smile fades quicker. The tone stiffens. You feel it, not in an explosion, but in a slow withdrawal. And that's where most men go wrong. They either cling harder or they burn the whole thing down. But not you. You don't punish her. You don't beg either. You simply pull back with weight, with presence, without bitterness. Because emotional detachment isn't the absence. It's gravity without orbit. It's the quiet decision to no longer hand over your peace in exchange for her inconsistency. You're not cold, you're clear. She says nothing's changed, but your body knows. Her words still sound the same, but they don't land. Her warmth is mechanical now, her attention divided. So you stop trying to fix what isn't yours to hold. You don't raise your voice. You don't keep checking in. You don't explain your silence. You have just begun the quiet withdrawal from the battlefield of one-sided effort. And here's what's critical. You don't make a speech, because men who announce their exit are still waiting to be stopped. But men who leave without ceremony, they become unforgettable. This psychological pivot is powerful. Most women expect a man to prove he cares by fighting harder. But when you shift into quiet detachment, it scrambles the pattern. She doesn't know where she stands. She doesn't know where you are anymore. And that tension, the uncertainty of losing a man who didn't collapse, didn't explain, didn't plead, it sticks in her mind. You don't become unforgettable by being the loudest man in her life. You become unforgettable by being the most grounded one she couldn't control. When you detach without resentment, it forces her to sit in the consequences of her distance, not with blame, but with reflection. Because now there's no fight to focus on, no drama to distract from, just your stillness and her echo inside it. This is how true withdrawal works. You're not angry because you've already let go. You're not acting strong, you are strong. You're not trying to win because you've already reclaimed the only thing worth keeping, yourself. Most men leave with noise. You leave with an impact. And when she senses that she's no longer the center of your emotional gravity, she starts to wonder, what is he focused on now? Who is he becoming? But that question doesn't get an answer because you're not trying to be understood anymore. You've shifted from trying to repair the connection to repairing your center. You've stopped handing your energy to someone who treats it like it's unlimited. Detachment done right doesn't provoke. It penetrates. It makes her feel the space you used to fill and realize how much noise she made trying to drown it out. So the next time you feel the urge to explain why you're backing off, don't. Let your absence be the explanation. Let your silence be the weight. Let your peace be the mirror. You don't leave to teach her a lesson. You leave because you've already learned yours. And in that clarity, you become untouchable. Number 4, reflect the hurt without carrying it. You feel the sting, her words, her indifference, the way she minimized what mattered to you. It echoes inside your chest like a bruise you can't point to. But here's the shift. You don't let it define you. You don't carry it into your identity. You simply reflect it to her without venom. This is the power most men never touch. They either internalize the pain, turn it into self-doubt, self-blame, or silence. Or they weaponize it, turn it into rage, punishment, control. But the man who truly knows himself, he lets the pain pass through, not into him. She accuses you of being emotionally unavailable right after ignoring you for days. And for a split second, you almost believe her. But then you breathe, you sit with it, and you realize what she said doesn't belong to you. It's a projection, a deflection, a test. And now, instead of reacting, you just pause. Because the moment you respond without charge, you force her to feel what she tried to dump onto you. You're not carrying her chaos anymore. You're holding your ground and letting her experience the weight of her patterns. This dynamic works because human emotion is cyclical. Most people don't want to feel their discomfort, so they provoke others to hold it for them. But when you reflect on it, without revenge, without passive aggression, you disrupt the cycle. You say less. You don't explain your pain. You let your distance say it for you. You don't guilt trip her. You simply withdraw the comfort she once abused. And that shift, it creates a silence that speaks louder than confrontation. From her side, she might not get it at first. She might accuse you of shutting down. She might poke, prod, or escalate. But when you hold your calm, when your eyes stay clear and your voice stays still, she feels it. She feels the mirror. She feels the boundary. She feels the hurt. But this time it's hers to hold. You didn't throw it back. You just didn't take it on. And that separation, that refusal to carry what isn't yours, it reclaims your masculinity on a cellular level. You stop being the emotional caretaker. You become the emotional anchor. Not just for her, but for yourself, because your nervous system isn't wired to be someone else's emotional sponge. It's wired to lead, to hold, to observe. And when you return to that center, not to prove, not to win, not to punish, but simply to be, she sees the man she can't manipulate. Not because you're cold, but because you're finally whole. You want to know if she notices? She does. In how you don't chase the next argument. How don't you apologize for what wasn't yours? How don't you collapse when she pulls back? Instead, you become the one thing she wasn't prepared for, a man who can feel deeply, but never let pain define him. Because true strength isn't measured by how loud you roar, it's measured by how quietly you endure. and still walk away with your spine intact. So the next time she tries to hand you pain wrapped in confusion, don't hold it. Don't carry it. Just reflect on it and move. Number 5, rebuild in silence. Make her feel your absence. She thinks you're still where she left you, emotionally frozen, quietly waiting, scrolling through memories, hoping she comes back. That's the story she's built in her head, because that's what most men do. They sit in the ruins. They wait to be rescued. But you're different. You don't rebuild by proving. You rebuild in silence. You become more dangerous, quietly. After she hurts you, she expects an emotional reaction. She expects the flinch, the chase, the message. When it doesn't come, she checks your profile. Still nothing. No quote, no hint, no bait. She wonders if you're numb, if you've shut down. But what haunts her is this. What if you've moved on without needing closure? Because now your absence isn't empty, it's structured. You're not just gone, you're growing. You train harder, you sleep more deeply, you start speaking less and executing more. You don't disappear to hide. You disappear to re-emerge as a man she no longer qualifies for. This isn't revenge, this is evolution. From a psychological lens, absence is a high-leverage tactic when used with clarity. It removes stimuli, breaks the feedback loop, and forces the other side to feel the vacuum you used to fill. But only if it's real, only if your silence is paired with internal movement. So you stop posting for attention. You stop writing indirect signals. You stop waiting for her to notice. Because the point isn't to make her regret. The point is to become so whole her memory of you no longer fits. And eventually, quietly, she starts checking again. Not because she misses what you said, but because she misses what you're no longer giving to her and you. You're too deep into your mission to look back. Too busy building to reply to a "Hey stranger" text at 11:42 p.m. She begins to realize you were never waiting. You were ascending. And that feeling, knowing you used to be hers, and now you're not even available emotionally, that's what sinks in. You don't need to show her your new life. You let the silence speak for itself. Because silence backed by purpose becomes mystery, and mystery backed by growth becomes power. Most men try to heal by being noticed. You heal by becoming invisible, strategically, until one day you are undeniable. She used to occupy your mind. Now you occupy space she can't reach because you rebuilt in silence. You never begged. You never announced your comeback. You just became someone she doesn't have access to anymore. And that truth, it lands deeper than any speech, any closure, any apology ever could. So don't just walk away, ascend. Not for her, not to prove anything, but because the man you were when she hurt you isn't the man you are when she looks for you again. There's a moment, quiet, still, when you wake up and realize she's no longer the storm. She's just a memory. And you're no longer the man she hurt. You're the man who survived it without losing his center. You don't need an apology. You don't need closure. You don't even need her to know you're done. Because you've already reclaimed what she couldn't carry, your emotional sovereignty. She may still expect a reaction. She may still wait for the message, the regret, the final chase, but all she'll get is silence. Not as punishment, as proof. Proof that you've stopped making your peace negotiable. The man you were, he wanted to explain, to be seen, to be held. But the man you've become, he doesn't explain wounds to the one who caused them. He just walks quietly, fully, and without permission. You didn't lose her. You found you. And the deeper you walk into that version of yourself, the less you feel the need to be remembered. Because the man who rises without being rescued never bows again. Her silence broke you once. Yours will echo forever.